This is CBC Vancouver News.
Strangers step in to stop a violent attempted robbery.
She said, "No, help, please help." And at that point, the two gentlemen were screaming, "We've called the cops." I was trying to chase after him.
Certainly a terrifying encounter.
3 men are being praised for their quick thinking and bravery. Also, Surrey's mayor calls on the province for more power.
We will be soon the largest city in British Columbia, and we need the ability to chart our own destiny.
The proposal and upcoming vote for Surrey's own city charter. And
we're delighted to see that there is a pent-up demand to come back.
a ride to the past. A long-awaited excursion is back on track in Cloverdale. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Baneet Braich. We begin with an attempted robbery in East Vancouver on Saturday night. Police are crediting a group of Good Samaritans, especially one man who took actions to protect a stranger. A young woman was closing up her family grocery shop and she was attacked by a man with a knife. But as Yvette Brent reports, the suspect was scared off when enough people confronted him.
He had his arms and kind of a physical looming presence over her.
That's what Christopher Boyd saw as he ran up to help a stranger.
He was wearing a balaclava over his face, and immediately I knew something was wrong and was not okay.
A 23-year-old woman was closing up her family corner store on this busy street when suddenly
She was approached from behind by a man. We believe the man was masked and the man had a knife.
That's when Boyd, driving along the street, saw something suspicious and pulled over. He flagged 2 other men. Together, the trio of Good Samaritans scared the attacker away.
And then finally she said, "No, help, please help." And at that point, the two gentlemen were screaming, "We've called the cops." I was trying to chase after him. He let go of her and started running down the laneway. So I immediately grabbed her and told her to run back this direction towards the street to get away from him.
The woman was terrified but wasn't seriously hurt.
We basically stayed with the girl here until police came, paramedics came, her family came. And yeah, it was awful for her. Absolutely terrible.
The suspect, a 59-year-old man known to police, was arrested an hour and a half later at this park, thanks to leads from the victim herself, witnesses, and the men who stopped. This assault comes in the wake of several high-profile violent stranger attacks in Vancouver, including a knife attack last week that left 1 man dead and another with a severed hand in the city's downtown. That's left many wary.
You really shouldn't feel concerned here, but still it happens, and yeah, it's a very scary thing.
She was in shock.
Still, Boyd didn't hesitate to step up. He says he's not sure what would have happened if he didn't stop.
I really don't know. It's a scary thought. I mean, it's a really scary thought.
Not everybody he flagged down pulled over.
It's not even a thought. It's just, you just have to stop to make sure.
But for Boyd, there was no choice. Yvette Brent, CBC News, Vancouver.
And in Surrey, RCMP say a woman is in hospital after being stabbed early this morning. Police say they were called around 2 a.m. to King George and 108 Avenue to report of a woman being struck by a car. But after getting there, police found she was actually stabbed, covered in blood and unconscious. Mounties say they arrested a possible suspect, that the attack was targeted. The woman remains in hospital. And BC's second largest city is calling on the provincial government to give it more power with the city charter. Surrey Council is set to table a motion Monday to give it similar powers to Vancouver. But as Rob Easton reports, council support may be high, but that doesn't mean the province will play along.
Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke makes her rounds with residents. She and council are bringing forward a proposal to bring more powers to BC's second largest city.
But we will be soon the largest city in British Columbia, and we need the ability to chart our own destiny.
On Monday, council will vote on a proposal for a Surrey city charter. Similar to what Vancouver's had since the 1950s, they say it will allow them to have more control over land use decisions and create more ways for the city to bring in more money beyond property taxes.
For example, our empty home taxes, we currently cannot enforce or have that policy. We need to be looking at what are our bylaw fines.
The city says it's seeing significant growth with thousands of people moving there every month.
We've got more than 1,200 to 1,500 people moving here each month.
But asking for more powers doesn't mean the province will hand them over.
I'm not sure the province is interested in writing separate charters. If they agreed to do it for Surrey, we know that Burnaby, Richmond, Victoria, Kamloops, Kelowna would be right behind.
Municipalities are creations of the province, and as Surrey saw in its recent court loss over returning the city police to the RCMP, the province holds all the power.
Historically, municipalities have had a lot of autonomy to govern their affairs, but not a lot of power. Cities are demanding that power at precisely the time that provinces are thinking about exercising more control over municipalities to meet certain objectives on certain files, particularly housing and public transportation infrastructure.
If the proposal is passed, Surrey's request for a charter will be sent to the province. In a statement, BC's Municipal Affairs Minister told CBC News the ministry would review any proposal from Surrey carefully. My ministry remains committed to continuing to provide advice and support to local governments. The statement added municipalities have not traditionally had their own charters, except for Vancouver. They fit under a more modern, province-wide community charter that was written in 2004. And now, as Surrey calls for more power, the province says Vancouver's charter city status is an exception, not the rule. Rob Easton, CBC News, Vancouver.
And mediation talks started today aimed at ending Metro Vancouver's HandyDart transit strike. About 600 employees have been off the job for the past 6 days, with only essential services running for cancer treatments, dialysis, and MS. Now, core sticking points include higher pay, staffing shortages, and high worker turnover.
Our union has been trying to negotiate for a new contract for, I think, 9 or 10 months now, and TransDev is the company that is contracted out by TransLink to operate HandyDart, and we just have not been able to come to a agreement with them in any way.
The union argues its members don't make as much as others working similar roles elsewhere in Canada. The employer TransDev said its final offer, which included a nearly 20% pay increase by January 2026, was rejected by employees before the strike started. The two sides have been negotiating since last November. And every second Sunday of September, the RCMP pays tribute to members who made the ultimate sacrifice. A fallen officer from BC was among those honored today. The late Constable Rick O'Brien from Ridge Meadows RCMP was added to the honor roll and cenotaph in today's memorial service in Regina, alongside Constable Brent Harold Viefkind from Alberta.
We must honor those who have died during the performance of their duties on behalf of Canadians here in our country and abroad. This day ensures that we will never forget them.
Constable O'Brien, Constable Viefkind.
Police and loved ones remember O'Brien as a fallen hero. He was 51 and was killed in September last year while executing a drug-related search warrant at a home in Coquitlam. Colleagues say O'Brien was a decorated constable who loved visiting schools, working with kids, and supporting his detachment through drives and sporting events. He spent his entire RCMP career of 7 years with Ridge Meadows RCMP and leaves his wife and 6 children behind. On Quadra Island, just off the coast of Vancouver Island, conservation groups are sounding the alarm over rapidly disappearing old-growth forests. A recent report backs up their worries, and the island has a long history of both natural and human-made disturbances, such as wildfires, that burned much of the island in the mid-1920s. Claire Palmer has more on the calls for more insight now.
It's forests like this on Quadra Island that conservationists are hoping to protect. In June, a complaint was made to the Forest Practices Board, BC's watchdog for best forestry practices. The Discovery Island Conservation Project alleges old growth on Quadra has reached critically low levels. It accused Timber West, the only timber harvester with a tree farm license on the island, of not having an effective strategy to preserve and build old growth.
So the interesting story on Quadra Island, which is somewhat of a complicated area, is there was past disturbance, pretty heavy past disturbance from forest fires back in the day. And so you don't have a lot of old growth existing on the island. And so one of what the plans and policies say is we need to recruit old growth. So when we're planning our harvesting, we need to make sure we have a strategic plan that will allow for the older forests to stay in place and grow and mature into old growth forests.
A few days ago, the board released a report. It found that each of the 3 licensees on the island didn't comply with some aspects of forestry legislation, but more importantly, that no one is responsible for monitoring or ensuring that Quadra Island's old forests are conserved.
And they could show us that they weren't harvesting old growth, but they couldn't show us in their strategic plan that they had actually protected enough area for this recruitment that we need to ensure that we're working towards the goals and targets that were set by the province.
Mosaic Forest Management, the Timberlands manager for Timber West, says it's committed to sustainable forest stewardship. In a statement, the company says it hasn't harvested old-growth forests for decades on the small island, but the Forest Practices Board report says Timber West isn't protecting mature forest so that it can become old growth.
And that's where we're saying, well, you need to ensure to us that, you're committed to enough of that mature forest being set aside for recruitment of old growth, because there's an objective to get to that, increase the amount of old growth in the area.
The board says only 5% or 471 hectares of Timber West's plot is old growth, but their target should be at 9%. The Ministry of Forests has chimed in, saying the province takes concern about non-compliance seriously, and ministry staff will thoroughly review the Forest Practice Board's investigation and look at what actions can be taken. Atkinson now says it's on Timber West to come back to them at the end of the year with a new strategic plan, one that will allow mature forests the opportunity to become old growth. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
Environment Canada issued a severe thunderstorm watch for BC's central Okanagan region, including Kelowna today. The forecaster says that expected severe thunderstorms may cause strong wind gusts and heavy rain. The thunderstorm watch also includes Vernon and Penticton and much of the Okanagan Valley. And it also comes as the smoky skies bulletins continue to be in effect for much of the north central and northeast BC due to wildfires south of the U.S. border. And it's a journey to the past with stunning scenery. A heritage rail ride returns after much anticipation. We have that next. If you're in the mood for a trip that takes you back in time, the Fraser Valley Heritage Railway is bringing back one of its rides. As CBC's Saurabh Sandhu reports, there's been long anticipation for its return on Sundays.
Fraser Valley Heritage Railway's Sunday excursions are back on track, and everyone of all ages are aboard. The train is welcoming back its first passengers in almost 2 years.
We're delighted to see that there is a pent-up demand to come back and actually experience what it was like 100 years ago in the area.
It's a 55-minute train ride from Cloverdale Station to Sullivan Park, crossing over Highway 10 as the road traffic comes to a complete halt. The 15-kilometer excursion is run by Fraser Valley Heritage Society in partnership with the city of Surrey. As the trolley rolls through, passengers look out watching scenic views of farmlands and wildlife.
Switch his line and check for the main line.
It's been a long-awaited journey. The face of rising insurance costs, the society had to halt the annual run at the end of summer 2022. The excursion was originally planned to start in August of this year, but was postponed due to delay in getting the safety approvals.
This is on the original British Columbia Electric Railway Fraser Valley line, and it's operated by Southern Railway of BC now, and they have allowed us back on after we've completed some negotiations and adjustments, and it's taken quite some time.
Starting this year, the train would go from Cloverdale Station to Surrey's iconic Bose family farms and back. Some of that family are welcoming back the return to the tracks.
This train means a lot to my family. It's how we originally got all of our produce to market. All the milk, all the vegetables were hauled on this railway through the New West.
The society says they have extended the excursions till the end of September to make up for the lost season. The excursion will also make a short return for Christmas before rolling back for a full season next summer. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Surrey.
The Vancouver Orphan Kitten Rescue Association says it's facing fundraising challenges. Earlier today, the rescue held its annual Walk for the Kitties event at Jericho Beach, where organizers say they are seeing a significant increase in animals coming compared to previous years.
A lot of people got pets during COVID and didn't think about, I'll be going back to work, I'll have to move, all the things that come up in a 16 to 20 year span of a cat's life. So there's just so many more around needing help. We're getting them from dumpsters, from parks, from everywhere.
The nonprofit says if it doesn't meet its $100,000 goal, it may have to limit the number of animals it takes in. Vocra says all funds go toward food, care, and supplies. And today marked the 45th annual Coho Festival in West Vancouver. It celebrates the return of Pacific salmon to the North Shore. Music and lots of salmon barbecue and even a coho swim were part of the festivities hosted by the Coho Society of the North Shore. It took place at West Vancouver's Ambleside Park. The continued focus of the festival is to raise awareness about protecting salmon and their habitats for future generations. And a water mapping project in British Columbia's West Kootenay region is trying to save time for firefighters.
The community is really it's a bunch of houses basically nestled right in the forest. There's so many wildfires around this area these days that it was kind of just a matter of time, really, that they were going to need this sort of advanced planning out there.
The goal of the project is to keep the focus on fighting fires rather than looking for water sources. The project has been done by Living Lakes Canada and the Argenta Safety and Preparedness Society. They say there's digital maps that identify all available water sources in the areas of Argenta and Johnson's Landing, that's in the West Kootenays. The document also includes access routes, ideal pump deployment sites in streams, and locations of buildings and residences. It also charts standpipes, which have high pressure water supply, similar to a fire hydrant, but with less pressure. That tool was actually used to battle the Argenta Creek wildfire near those communities. And there was good news this weekend around the Jasper wildfire. It's now designated under control, and tourists have been able to enter part of the area. But also this weekend, more images of destruction left behind. The CBC's Sam Sampson reports.
This is like quarter-inch steel plate.
A bear-proof trash bin can withstand hungry wildlife, but not this summer's wildfire.
Fire-generated convective hull was obviously able to rip apart steel structures that are designed to withstand the tensions of a grizzly bear.
This is what's left of a popular campsite near the town of Jasper. The 32,000-hectare fire left just rubble of campground showers and the only phone booth left in Jasper National Park.
You can see the root systems of a bunch of the trees that have been ripped out of the ground.
All camping reservations are canceled for the rest of the year. It's not safe for people to stay here yet. But inside town, visitors were welcomed back this weekend for the first time since the fire, with some restrictions. The west side, where a third of the town's buildings were destroyed, is off limits to tourists.
To protect the privacy of people who are still grieving over their personal losses.
Jasper's mayor says the decision to welcome back tourists, while some residents still can't live in their town, has been challenging.
That is the critical balancing point that we have to manage. On the other hand, for those who are here, we will visit further calamity on them if they don't have some opportunity to resume their businesses, and that will exacerbate the condition that as a community we are all in.
I think there is a certain level of anxiety and apprehension about what if could this happen again.
The vice president of Marmot Basin, a popular ski area, says the drive up the hill is spooky, but since the resort was spared, they're getting ready to open in November.
The entire community is looking forward to that because that is going to get us through the winter in terms of supporting the community economically.
Of course, this all hinges on safety. Though the fire danger is lower, Parks Canada says there's still a risk of smoke and fire inside already burned areas right until winter. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
And in Vietnam, its government says 21 people have died this weekend in Typhoon Yagi, and more than 220 were injured. Yagi hit yesterday, bringing winds of 160 kilometers an hour, and along the coast, waves of 4 meters. Flooding and the threat of more continue today in Haiphong, where Yagi hit hardest. Industrial parks remain closed. Now, some face significant repairs. Yagi was the strongest storm to hit Vietnam in decades. And a petition is launching in Egypt demanding Germany return a famous artifact that dates back to the age of the pharaohs. It is the painted limestone bust of the 18th dynasty queen Nefertiti. It was discovered by a German archaeological team in 1912 and shipped to Berlin. The petition is the work of prominent Egyptian archaeologist Zahi Hawass, and Nefertiti was the wife of the pharaoh Akhenaten. They ruled Egypt more than 3,300 years ago. And here's a live shot of the Georgia Viaduct. I'll have your full forecast next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
British Columbia is heading to the polls on October 19th. Keep informed with CBC News for in-depth analysis, interviews, and breaking news that can help you decide the province's future. Download and tune in with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. For news you can trust, stay connected wherever you are with the CBC News app.
And it's time to take a look at your BC-wide weather forecasts. Let's start with your temperatures tonight. So we are seeing lots of cloudy weather and rain. We see those thunderstorms in Kelowna where it's 17 degrees. Rain for parts of northern BC, 7 degrees in Prince George, 12 degrees in Williams Lake, also 12 in Victoria. Looking ahead to tomorrow, got some more sunshine coming up, 20 degrees in Victoria, 18 in Prince George, 24 in Kelowna, and Cranbrook will feel quite warm at 29 degrees. And looking ahead at tomorrow's 5-day forecast. So we do have some rain expected on Monday, a high of 22 there. Tuesday, we're at 21 degrees, some sunshine and clouds. 19 on Wednesday, and yeah, cloudy skies and sunshine continue for much of that coming up, and with temperatures that will stay between the low 20s there. And that is your late news for this Sunday. Thank you so much for watching. For news at any hour, you can always go to our website. That's cbc.ca/BC. The early edition will have your morning news at 5:30 a.m. Have a great night.